Good evening. Welcome to Driver's Ed this evening. I don't know if it's raining where you are, but it's starting to lighten up a little bit. It's been a while since I've taught a class when it's been raining outside, so if we hear some pitter-patter on the mic, that's what it is. So please sign in like we normally do every evening. Welcome. So we'll wait about a minute or two. Remember to sign in on your phone. Last night, you didn't have to sign out because I know when you started the test, when you finished the test, everybody's nice and prompt tonight. Look at that. We're getting up to a full class. My apologies. I did not put a link to tonight's class on YouTube. I got home from driving all day, and I came into the computer room here, and I forgot to load in all the information about tonight's class. So I had to kind of throw it all together the last few minutes, and John was kind enough to mention, are we having class tonight? We're always going to have class the way that it's designated on your syllabus, so don't worry if you don't get a notification from YouTube. It's just me that I haven't loaded it into the computer system. So I load it in, and then I hit program, and it downloads to YouTube a thumbnail and a description of what we're going over. So that's how that works. And I think Facebook did the same thing. I think it sent you out a notice that we're having class. So, whoa, geez, what happened? Geez, all of you came on. I'm going to count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. How can we have 21 people that are on YouTube under comments, 21 and only 16 people watching? Now we got 17. I'm going to get out of the music tonight real quick. I am going to be asking questions during tonight's class because it is kind of a subject that is kind of dry. It's on driving emergencies. It's almost like learning first aid or CPR. You could ask your parents, ask friends that have driven, ask them about, have they ever experienced, some of these things? Most people haven't. So you could be driving for years. You could be driving for 20 years, and some of the things that we discussed tonight will have never happened. But you could be driving in the next 2 months, and it could happen. You just don't know. So it's one of these things is that you want to have a basic understanding of the steps to take in order to handle these emergencies, just like first aid. You may never, ever use it, but if you did need to use it, could you recall at least the majority of steps that have to take place to help stop bleeding or to resuscitate somebody if it came to using CPR? And hopefully you would be able to do it. Same thing with tonight. So hopefully if some of these things do happen to you out on the road, you're going to go, oh yeah, I remember talking about that in Driver's Ed, or I remember reading about that in Driver's Ed. And that's basically what we want to have accomplished. I'm going to start taking a closer look on YouTube at the comments that people make when I ask questions. It's very difficult. I know online is hard. I know it's hard to stay focused. I know you want to maybe do something else, but I'm asking you, commit yourself to, and like I said, it's about an hour and 15 minutes, and then I'm going to give you some worksheets to do to bring it to 9:30. But stay with me, all right? And I'm going to reward those that are answering questions on the YouTube comments or you could even do it on your phone. As long as you're commenting when I ask a question, I know that you're actively watching at the time, you're going to get top priority on drive times. That's how I'm going to run the rest of the class, because the test scores were fairly good on the midterms. I was quite pleased with a lot of them. Some of them have to kind of get a little bit better. It doesn't mean that you're failing the driver's ed. It just means that you haven't learned as much material as you should have learned up to this point. So it's the final that you have to worry about. So there's nothing negative about the midterm, but what happens if you did really well? If you did really well on the midterm and you don't do so well on the final, I'm going to give you some extra credit, some points, so you don't have to take a retest. All right, so it's retest that you have to worry out about. I will tell you, if you do not score 65 or above on the final, you're in trouble. So hopefully, I'm going to see who's watching right now. We got 17 people. All right. 65 and above, I'm going to work with you. We're going to get you that license. Less than 65, we're going to have a talk. Less than 65 is not good. Okay, technically that's a fail. And you know what happens when you fail. So we won't really get into that too much because I don't want to make tonight to be too much of a downer. So please get out some paper, get something to write with, and we're going to dive right into what we're going to cover tonight, which starts off with the most common type of driving emergency. So I want you to write down, think before you act. We're going to use the analogy of CPR and first aid a lot when it comes to some of these topics. In an emergency, your adrenaline is going to take over. And a lot of times we're very reactive and not proactive. So what we're going to try to do tonight is to make you a proactive driver and not a reactive driver. Okay, so proactive, you're going to probably be more in tune to get out of the bad situation. Oh, there's an echo. Thanks for telling me that. Okay, Sam, there's an echo. Okay. Let me know if the echo still happens. I've got two microphones, microphone on the computer and a microphone that I'm using right here. So someone in the messages, let me know if the echo's gone. So just tell me if it's gone. I think it probably has. But just let me know. Okay, first thing I want you to write down is running off the pavement. This is something that is going to happen at some point in your driving if it hasn't happened already. Why would someone go off the edge of the pavement? Well, it could be that you're a little bit nervous of the oncoming vehicle, so you're on a straightaway, you see a car coming, you go too close to the white line, before you know it, you're a foot over the white line, and you hit the edge. Hitting the edge of the pavement is going to pull your car to the right. It's going to pull you to the soft shoulder. So what I want you to write down is don't panic. Grip the steering wheel tightly, because the car is going to pull you more to the right. The larger the drop off from the pavement and the softer the dirt, the greater the pull of the vehicle to the right. Now, your first reaction when you go off the pavement is going to be to turn the wheel real quick to the left. And this is where the problem's going to lie, is you're going to turn the wheel way too much to the left and you're going to shoot over the center line. You're going to get back onto the road and you're going to shoot right over to oncoming traffic. Or you went so fast off the edge of the pavement, it's going to continue to pull you more to the right and you're just going to get sucked into trees, bushes, potholes, guardrails, anything that's off to the edge. So let go of the gas pedal. The minute you know you're not on the pavement, you got two tires to the right on the soft shoulder, you got two tires on the pavement. Let go of the gas pedal. Try to keep the car going. And this is a typo. It says, do not step on the gas pedal. It's supposed to be brake pedal suddenly or hard. Use the brake pedal gently. Use it easy. Now, I think it's good if it's a real abrupt pull off to the side of the road. You should pull over, stop the vehicle, regain your composure, think about what just happened, put your left signal on, check your rearview mirror, side view mirror, and then come back out onto the pavement. Now, I put down some negative results of running off the pavement, and I'll come back here. Only turn the wheel a quarter of a turn. So if you're running off on the soft shoulder, it's just a 3 to 4 inch turn of the steering wheel. If you go a half of a turn on the steering wheel, that is the amount of steering that's going to shoot you across. You want just enough that's going to pop you up over the curb again, or the edge of the pavement, and back onto the road. And remember, when you come back onto the pavement, there could be a fishtail. A fishtail is when the back end swings from side to side. So just remember, if you come on too quick and you're going too fast, you're going to feel the car kind of slide a little bit. Let me show you a video about going off the pavement.
Drifting onto the gravel shoulder of a highway can lead to a serious collision.
The uneven traction could cause you to lose control of your vehicle and send you into the ditch.
In this situation, don't make any quick movements. Making a quick change or abruptly moving back onto the pavement could send your vehicle into the path of oncoming traffic.
A head-on collision could occur because of overcorrecting. You should grip the steering wheel firmly and slowly ease off the gas, but do not brake. When you feel you have control of the vehicle, check your mirrors, signal, and ease back onto the highway when safe.
If the drop-off to the shoulder is steeper than usual, slow down even more and steer back onto the pavement at an even sharper angle.
So you can see it was pretty level, so that wasn't too bad for that video clip that they did. The greater the drop-off, the worse the result is going to be. The next thing I want you to write down is what would happen if your tire blows out. Okay, what are some of the things that would cause a blowout? Hitting a pothole too hard, glass, nail, anything metal that's got a sharp edge to it. So there are different reasons why we would have a blowout. So try not to hit anything that is on the roadway. So straddle whatever's in the road. And depending on if it's night or whether it's the daytime, you may not be able to see it clearly. But if you know it's something, you should try to avoid it. Never assume that it's going to be okay. I'll tell you a funny story that happened. I was driving with a student. This was probably over 20 years ago. And it was during the summer, almost probably about the time that we're driving right now. And we came across a plastic bag that was floating on the roadway. And they said, should I hit it? And I go, well, no, go slower. Even though we know it's a plastic bag, we don't want to hit it. It gets stuck on the front and make noises. And after we drove by it, we didn't hit it. He said, I've got a friend that would put bricks in a paper bag, and he would put them into the middle of the road, and he'd see what cars would do, whether they would go around it or whether they would hit the paper bag. So you never know what could be inside something. It may look like it's nothing, but it could be glass, could be bricks. I was kind of surprised that people would do something like that, but now this I'd want you to know for the final. So from everything that we go over tonight to the very end of the program is going to be heavy on the final. Will there still be some questions on the final of information that we had prior to tonight? Absolutely. But it's not going to be like the signs. And by the way, some of those signs were really, really hard. So if you had a hard time with just the sign portion, I haven't had a chance to go through all your exams. I'll probably do that this weekend. But if you got a lot of signs, I guarantee you'll do much better on the final. So, cheer up. And, I forgot to mention, someone pointed out that there was a wrong answer about going by a school zone. And the testing site that I used gave the wrong answer. So I must not have saved it correctly what the correct answer was. It was supposed to be 10 miles below the posted speed limit. And I forgot who told me that, but A+ for you picking up that the test had a typo. So everybody gets an extra, like a 1.25 points added to their score. So good for you. So this is what I want you to write down for the final. Vehicles will pull in the direction of the tire that's blown out to the front. So if it's a front tire blown out to the left, it'll pull you over the yellow line. If it's front right tire, it'll pull you over the white edge line. Doesn't matter what tire in the back is blown out, there's going to be a fishtail. And like I said, a fishtail is where the back end swings from side to side. And the faster your speed, the greater the fishtail is going to be. So this is why you have to go to the third bullet here. Grab the steering wheel tightly because the car is going to pull. Now let me explain the word straight. The word straight, we think, is linear. We think when it says steer straight, we're going to keep our hands at 10 and 2 and go visually straight. That's not what they're talking about here. So what I want you to write down in your notes, stay in your lane. That's a better term because you don't want to leave the white line. You don't want to leave the yellow line. So any driving emergency and you're losing control and you're trying to regain control with your steering, think about keeping it spaced, centered in your lane. Don't think linear straight, okay? I don't like how the manual does that. Yeah, I'll take a look at the speed. The speed no, the speed is 70. Look at the state manual. That is the fastest you can go in New Hampshire. So I'm quite positive that was correct. Next bullet. Brake only when you have control of the vehicle and you have a lower speed, and then pull over to the side of the road because now you're going to have to change a tire. Low tire pressure could also be a cause of a blowout, but we already talked about debris in the road, potholes, bulges, things like that. So changing a tire is going to be the next thing. And I couldn't find some of these videos, so we're going to go through tonight's class a little bit quicker than normal. I do want you to write a few things down here about tire pressure. Clearly, it's important by keeping your tires inflated to the proper pressure. It can be sometimes confusing, so here are a few tips. So try to check your tire pressure on a monthly basis because we know air will leak from your tires. Usually, you're going to lose about 1 pound per square inch per month. And as temperatures get colder outside, they drop. For every 10 degrees it drops, you lose 1 psi. Don't rely on the sensor inside your vehicle. Okay, it is a rough estimate. You should invest in a tire gauge, and I don't think, yeah, I do. I've got one right here. Let me get it. All right, I just got it. Let me get out of here for a second. Tire pressure gauge, okay, right here. Just put this end right on the tire stem, okay, just like you would a bike tire. And here, whether you can see it or not in the camera, it doesn't focus in too well. I thought the camera would do a better job. Really kind of hard to read the numbers, but it will tell you what your pounds per square inch would be. Know that your tire pressure could be found not only on the tire sidewall, but actually it's better to look at the door frame. Remember when we did knowing your vehicle? So this is the second to the bottom bullet. Newer cars list tire pressure on the driver's side door frame. That's where you're going to get the exact amount that you should put in. And know which is which. Cars have at least 3 separate tire pressure ratings. One for the front, one for the rear, and one for your spare. And that's going to be right on that tag on that door frame. So I'd get all my information from there. Here's an example of a worn tire. This is why you're going to check around your vehicle on a regular basis and kind of look for worn spots. And that's extremely bad. That's someone that didn't want to buy new tires and trying to get as much life out of the tire as you possibly can. And it actually blew. You could see the top part of the picture. That is a blown tire up there at the top. I was driving with a student. You can see I'm in the bottom left corner of this picture. This is showing you a tire that was driven on that was blown. If you drive on a flat tire, let me show you the next picture. If you drive on a flat tire, eventually the rubber is going to leave the rim, and all you're going to be left with is riding on a riding on a rim. This is going to ruin the rim. Basically, tires are going to be between smaller cars. You could get $90, $95 up to $250 on SUVs. So that is the rubber part. But if you have to replace the metal part because you're riding on the picture that I just shown you, you're going to have to replace that, and that could be another $100, $200. So it's a pretty big expense. You just want to replace the tire and not the rim. So let's talk about changing a tire. Safety should always be first. You should be looking for a safe place to pull over and change a tire. Now, if you never have tried to change a tire before, it can be somewhat challenging. Okay, the best thing that I can tell you to do is to read the owner's manual. Try to follow the steps that they have listed for you and do the best that you possibly can. Now, here's my words of wisdom, okay, from a guy that's getting older. Have a membership in AAA because you will not have to change your tire. You can basically get on the phone, call them, they will come out and do the work for you, all right? But you still should know how to change a tire. And have we changed tires in the driver's ed vehicle? Probably about 3 to 4 times. Even in the summer months, I take the class out and we do some of these things that we're talking about with driving emergencies. We make believe we're jumping a car or changing a tire. So we do stuff like that if I had you all together. But I found a couple funny commercials. So I want to show you how not to change a tire. Okay, let's talk about each one of those commercials because it really ties into something that's very unsafe. The first one, the woman that was changing the tire, good for her. She was doing it. But let me tell you, anytime that you're exerting more pressure than you should, there's always a chance that you're going to lose grip of the lug nut wrench and you're going to go, in this case, she went over the guardrail. Okay, that's kind of, that normally doesn't happen, but it could. If you're working on the same side of the road, you could go out into oncoming traffic. Same thing with the second case scenario. He was very safety conscientious, but he didn't realize he was going backwards out into traffic. You have to be aware of your surroundings when you're changing a tire. This is why I do not recommend doing it on the side of the road. You should be looking for a driveway. You should be looking for a rest area, a parking lot, gas station, someone's driveway. Be very extremely careful, because every year someone is injured or killed working on their vehicle on the side of the road. All right, especially on the left side of the vehicle, maybe not so much on the right. Even if your car has a flat tire and you're in the left lane, you should still try to work your way through traffic till you get far enough over to the right side of the road to change a tire. Should never be changing a tire over on the left side of the road. That's not safe. It's not good for a tow truck if they have to come out and get you to try to bring your car across multiple lanes. So you don't want that to happen. And the last one, never go underneath the vehicle. Never go underneath the vehicle when you're got it up on a jack, because there's always a chance you're going to hit the car and it's going to go off. So let's go step by step. Okay, so look for a safe place. We already mentioned that. Here's a good one. Get everyone out of the vehicle. No one should be in the vehicle. I don't care if it's 10 below or if it's raining, because any movement inside the vehicle, people are going to jiggle the car and it's going to go off the jack. Give warnings, sometimes a flare, triangle, emergency lights, or even take some of your passengers and place them down the road a little bit and warn cars that are coming towards you that you're there just over a hill or around a corner. Trigging a wheel, all right? Trigging a wheel means that you're putting a block in the front of the tire opposite the tire that's being changed. So what I want you to do right now, okay, here's a question to see who's still on, because I notice we're losing people. In the comments on YouTube, I want you to put down trigging the wheel means blocking the front tire. Okay, so trigging the wheel, put down you're blocking the front tire or the opposite tire. So put down opposite tire or front tire. We're talking about a rear wheel vehicle or a rear wheel that you're replacing. So I'll know that you're on right now watching. So put blocking the front wheel, and I'll know that you're on. Loosen the wheel cover, loosen the lug nuts, and I'm going to show you a video of a tire company that's going to really take this through step by step. Place the jack on firm ground. Lift it about 2 to 3 inches above what you're going to need for the tire that's going on. Now remember, some spares are going to be what we call a donut tire. Those are those real tiny tires. But for the most part, if it's a full-size tire that you're putting on, you want to have that extra 2 to 3 inches to get the old flat tire off, put the new tire on. So lift off the tire, replace it with the spare that you have. Tighten the lug nuts on at opposite. Always skip a hole, okay? Always skip a hole. Then lower the vehicle and tighten up the lug nuts. So let's take a look at a tire company that's going to explain it a lot better than what I'm doing, okay? So let's see how you really do change a tire.
Make sure your vehicle is parked in a safe location. A low-traffic parking lot or large paved pullout well off any busy street or road is ideal. Set the emergency brake first. If you have a manual transmission, put your car in first gear. If your vehicle is an automatic, just put it in park. Next, place wheel chocks or big rocks behind and in front of the tire opposite the one being changed. This will prevent vehicle movement and the jack from slipping while we work. Next, find your lug wrench, jack, and spare tire. These tools are often located in the trunk under the carpeting. Your vehicle's manual will indicate exactly where they are. This only applies if your vehicle has a hubcap. Many hubcaps just snap into place, but some are held on by the lug nuts. You can usually pry them off using something flat like a screwdriver. If your vehicle has covers over the lug nuts, be sure to remove them as well. Loosen the first lug nut by rotating the wrench counterclockwise just once without removing the lug nut entirely. Then, loosen the second nut directly opposite of the first one, and then the one opposite that, like a star-shaped pattern. If the lug nuts are tight, use your body weight to push down. Look in your owner's manual for where to position the jack. It's often under the frame near the tire with the flat, but not always the case. Our jack should be aligned with a thin seam line that runs under the vehicle. The factory jack has a notch cut out of it for a specific fit. Next, insert the handle and turn it clockwise to raise the car. Lower the jack if at any point your car seems unstable, and never ever get under a car that is only supported by a jack. Now, fully remove the lug nuts and place them in a secure location. Grasp the tire with two hands and pull it straight out. Then place it under the car. This is a precautionary measure just in case the jack slips. Remove any aftermarket accessories like hub rings at this point. The valve stem on the spare tire should be facing out. Then align it with the wheel studs and push it into the assembly. Tighten one lug nut by hand. Follow the same star pattern used to remove the lug nuts. Remove the flat tire from underneath the vehicle. Turn the jack handle counterclockwise and lower the vehicle. Once the vehicle is firmly grounded, fully tighten the lug nuts using your wrench, again in the star-shaped pattern. Remember to gather your tools back in place. Remove the wheel chucks and place your flat tire in the trunk. Lug nuts and lug bolts should be torqued to factory specs. You can also reach out to a local discount tire for proper torque recommendations for your vehicle. Finally, remember that spare tires are smaller and less capable than regular tires. They should only be used for limited short-distance driving. Visit your nearest discount tire.
So he did a very good job of explaining it, and I'm a very visual person, so I like seeing something being done. I'm more apt to remember things if I see it than to read it. So I think it's really important that we talk about it and look at the steps and then take a look at a video to remember some of these things that they're talking about. That star pattern about loosening it up is really important, about the groove of where you put the jack, because if you don't put the jack at the right spot, or if you're confused what that means, I mean, hands-on is really the way to go. So this is where, like I said, I like bringing my classes outside just to show you a few things. Not everybody does it, but they at least get a quick look at it, you know, what it would happen if we had to do it. So hopefully this will give you some idea of what to do if you had to change a tire. Now, skidding's going to come up again tomorrow, maybe on Monday's class, because driving in bad weather, ice, sleet, snow, rain, there's always a chance that the car is going to lose control. So skidding doesn't mean that you're necessarily leaving black rubber on the pavement. Skidding basically means that your tires don't have traction. So you could be skidding and not see any marks, at least black, dark marks, okay? Now, this is the most important thing that I want you to remember, so please write this down. Hint, hint, final, final. The most important thing when losing control of your vehicle is steering. The minute you skid, the minute you lose control of your vehicle, you've got to think about what you're doing with your hands. You're trying, as we said earlier, keeping your car not going straight, but staying in your lane. You're trying to not create a problem for other drivers on the road. You're trying not to hit any trees, any immovable objects. You're trying to regain control, all right? So steering is the most important thing when you're skidding. Now, once you start to feel like you've got some control of the vehicle, then you're going to be braking. Now, what it's saying here in the PowerPoint is that you're wherever the back end is sliding to. I'm going to get out of this for a minute. And I'll hold up the manual. Okay. So if the back end is going to the right, you're steering to the right. If the back end is going to the left, you're steering to the left. So write that down in your notes. Wherever the back end is pushing out to, you're turning the wheel that way. Because if you turn it the opposite way, what's going to happen is you're going to do a 360. The car is just going to just spin right around. All right? It's almost a natural reaction to do it correctly. In all the years that I've been teaching driver's ed, I think I've only had 3 or 4 students turn the wheel the wrong way when we've skid. And usually it's in the winter time. Okay, they turn the wheel the wrong way, and we did this. I'm going to move my seat back a little bit. We were driving one day. We hit a patch of ice, and the student hit the brakes too hard, and we did this. We spun the car all the way around, so we're facing the way that we started. We did a 360 twice in the driver's ed car, 2 different students at different points. So skidding is bad, and you can make it worse. So that's why it's important to learn. Luckily, we never got hit because we did go in the other lane a little bit. So always be ready to steer in the opposite direction. So if the back end is sliding out to the right, you're steering to the right. Now the back end's going to go to the left. Now you're steering to the left a little bit. Now the back end's going to the right, and now you're going to steer to the right. So there's usually 3 counter steers. The biggest skid is going to be the first skid. Then the next slide's going to be a little bit less, and then by the 3rd little slide, you should have your car in your lane, centered and going where you want. So think of three turns of the wheel. One direction, like to the right, left, and then right, and then you're good to go. Okay, so there's usually 3 different turns of the wheel when you're going at least 30, 35 miles per hour. And by the way, we'll talk more about this tomorrow. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll talk about this tomorrow. Flooded engine, don't write anything down. Cars are fuel injected now. I don't think this was in the textbook. We really don't have to know too much about this anymore. Wet brakes, I do want you to write down. This is for brake pedals that are getting submerged in water. You're going through a large puddle. The water works its way up and through the brake pad and the rotors. When you go to use your brakes, they squeal, they make a funny noise. Okay, so how do you dry your brakes? You apply your brakes with your left foot and you accelerate with your right foot slightly, and what you're going to do is you're going to create heat. You're going to create friction. So if my hand, here's the rotor, here's your brake pad, so your brake pad comes up against your tire rotor, and just like on a bike tire, you know, the piece of rubber that comes up against the rim of your bike tire, same thing in a car, okay? The pedal, brake mechanism comes up against the rotor and creates friction. So with water, you don't get a real good grip of braking, so you're trying to create some heat. So accelerate and brake at the same time. You're going to get some heat, and it's going to dry that connection. It's going to dry it off. That's what drying your brakes means. And cars now are so well equipped and manufactured that we don't find the brake cylinders and the rotors having that much of a problem. But if you hear a sound or the brakes feel a little bit spongy, then I'd go to trying to dry my brakes. Brake failure. I didn't download that video either. Okay, so here's one I want you to write down. You go to hit the brake pedal and it's not stopping the car the way that it normally does. So what I want you to do is to pump the pedal, pump the brake pedal. What you're trying to do is to push brake fluid through the brake line. to get to the brake cylinders. Okay. Now, if that doesn't work, then use your parking brake. But remember to hold the release, because the minute your car has the parking brake engaged, it locks up your back tires. And now you're going to slide. You're going to skid. So the minute you start slowing down with your parking brake, you got to release it. So it's, let me get out of here. So it's going to be pulling up on the brake pedal, parking brake that's between the bucket seats. Pull up on it, then release it. Pull up on it and release it. Just don't pull up on it and hold it, because that's going to lock up the back tires, and now the car's going into a skid. This is one of the worst things, losing your brakes, because you're coming to maybe a traffic light or a stop sign. You need brake pressure. You need your brakes. So if the pumping the brakes don't work, parking brake doesn't work, shift to a lower gear is good. That will slow the car down. It won't stop you, but it will slow the car down. And then the next thing that it mentions here is side swipe something at a glancing blow. So let me explain that for a moment. Anything that you hit, all right, and I'm going to hit the side of the mic right here. So if my car is coming up, I'm going to hit it at a glancing blow. So I hit it, and then I come back out, and then I try to find something else. This is what I want you to write down in your notes, so you remember this. Anything that you hit, you will have to replace. So if you're going to hit something, look for something that doesn't cost a lot of money. You're looking at fence posts, mail boxes at the end of a driveway, bushes, shrubs. Stay away from fire hydrants, telephone poles. Those things will stop you very quick, okay? But they're also very costly. I believe to replace a fire hydrant is like $10,000, okay? To replace some of these telephone poles that have some of these power grids and stuff on them. I have a guy that I went to high school with, and he told me to get a crew out at night or on a weekend or a holiday to replace one of those poles could be between $10,000 and $20,000. Okay, you're going to be on the hook for that, or your insurance company is going to be on the hook for that. So think about what you're hitting. Okay, never people. Okay, and stay away from animals. Those don't slow you down. So don't look for something like that to hit, but you are looking for things that will give. Beep your horn, flash your lights, give people an idea that you have a real problem. Pull over the side of the road once you can, if you can stop the vehicle. And once again, AAA, here's another push for getting a AAA membership. It's going to be helpful. Okay, let's talk about what the worst case scenario with any of these emergencies. The first thing is you're going to hit something. So always try to lessen the impact. Hit the brakes as hard as you possibly can, and try to stop as quickly as you possibly can. Sometimes turning quickly will be good. Look for the shoulder. That's where you're going to find, as we just mentioned, something to sideswipe, something that's going to slow the vehicle down. It's going to give you some give. We talked about sideswipe. Speed up quickly. That's possible, especially if it's a car backing out of a parking spot. Sometimes you'll be able to speed up and get by where there's going to be a problem. Try never to get hit on both sides. Here is a picture, and yes, that is a person in a very small vehicle on Interstate 95, not 95, it says 84. I'm sorry. I got to get my glasses done. Okay. Sometimes you're just plain lucky. Sometimes you can't have any control of where you're going to get hit. They hit you. And you just better hope and pray you've got all your safety devices activated, your seatbelt, your airbags, anything else. But that is probably one lucky guy. Because that, if I was to take a look at that, if he had his head turned, I would probably say he didn't make it. But thank goodness he did. If your vehicle overheats, write this down. You're going to get a temperature warning inside your car on your dash. So your temperature gauge is going to be going towards hot, or there's going to be a light that comes on, a temperature light. That is telling you your car is running too hot. So you probably sprung a leak in your radiator. What does a radiator do? Radiator has antifreeze, so it prevents the car from freezing up in the winter and overheating in the summer. And we have fluid that gets circulated through the metal parts of your car. Now, once that fluid is no longer in your vehicle, then you run the risk of what we call running hot or overheating. That will ruin an engine. So the minute you see that gauge getting towards the H or towards the red part near the H, or the light comes on, pull over. Turn off the engine. You're about to ruin your car. The other thing, don't try to be a mechanic. Don't try to open up the hood and go, oh, I'm low on fluid. I'll just go get some fluid and I'll put it into my vehicle. You don't want to do that. Anytime that you do that, there's a chance that you could do serious damage, especially if it's extremely hot. It could make metal expand and you just ruin your car. So once again, I'd probably call for help, call AAA or call somebody to tow you, and then have someone take a look at your cooling system. But this is one of the things that you should never have a problem with. Now, one thing that they don't mention, I think in the textbook, let me explain it here so you have a better idea, is to put your heater, okay, with your air conditioning and you got a cold and hot, okay, write this down. Turn your heater on and turn the dial to the warmest part for heat coming into your car. Now, you're probably thinking, why would I do that in June or July when it's already hot? Why would I? Because you're taking some of that heat from the engine and you're bringing it into the passenger compartment. So by taking heat away from that area, bringing it into where you're driving, it's going to drop the temperature. It would be almost like opening up windows because it's too hot in the room. By opening up a window, getting cooler air that's on the outside, it will change the temperature where you are. Okay, same thing with the engine. So that's one thing that you should always remember. So roll down your windows, turn on the heater, and the heat will come in through the vents, get away from the engine, and it'll just go right out of your car if you got your windows down. This happened to my daughter. She was going over the bridge from Portsmouth back into Dover, and she was stuck in traffic, and she called me and she said, Dad, my car's overheating. It's starting to smoke. My temperature gauge is going towards hot. What am I going to do? So this is what we did. We had the heater go on, and I told her get off at the first exit and then call for help or get to a gas station. And she was able to do that. This doesn't happen that often, but why would a car go off the road and into water? Well, nowadays with flash flooding, it could be your car is just, you're going down a roadway, you see a large area that's covering the road, and you think, oh, this is probably only 3 or 4 inches. I should be able to make it. It's not going to go inside my car. My tire should be able to handle it. But you go a little bit deeper than normal, and all of a sudden you find water coming up near your feet. It's now actually 8 to 9 to 10 inches, and now the car is going to lift up, and it's going to maybe float you down. If it's running water, it will float. The car will get lifted up and float. Other ways you could get caught in water would be leaving the roadway and going into a river. Cars don't go over bridges. A lot of people think, oh, I'm going to get in a car crash and my car will pop over the guardrail and then into the water. I'll fall into the depths of the ocean by going over the bridge in Newington or Portsmouth into Kittery. It just doesn't happen. They build a bridge so good. It's usually your secondary roads out in the country where they don't do the safety devices like you have on bridges where you're going to. And another reason why it could get submerged in water would be falling through the ice. You'd be surprised how many people go ice fishing or bring their car out onto a lake. The car just drops, right through the ice. The thing you got to remember, even if it's getting caught up in a flood, is the car will float. It will not just plunge like a rock. It will float for 3 to 10 minutes, but it will go nose first. Okay? So if you are getting submerged in water, and I mean you're dropping, okay, it's three minutes now and the car is going down, okay, try to crack a window, open a door, try to relieve the pressure that is going to make it more difficult from getting out. Look for something to break the window, anything to get out of the vehicle. Don't want to stay in the vehicle any longer than normal. Here's an example. See, there's no guardrail, okay? So, and you can see there's snow on the ground. So they were probably going too fast. It looks like it's a little country road. This is not good. Now, the car isn't totally submerged, and you should be able to get out. But if it did flip over, it'd be a little bit more of a serious condition. Don't want that to happen. Now, as I told you about going through the ice, this is Sarah Edgley. She passed away at the age of 34. I did know Sarah and her mom. We used to go to the same church. And Sarah is a twin. She has a brother had a brother that was the same age. They were both in the vehicle at the same time. Her brother got out. She did not. She was submerged. If you look at the third paragraph, she was submerged in freezing water for 40 minutes. Sarah was unable to communicate, and she was confined to her wheelchair from the time that she suffered this brain injury at the age of 11 till the day that she died. She could only communicate by pointing with her finger at an alphabet board to communicate what she wanted to do. The ice was not thick enough. They were too close to an edge. The car got submerged. Her dad and her brother got out, but she was not. So these things do happen. Like I said, it's like first aid. You just never know when something like this is going to happen. And it was very, very sad. It was very traumatic for the whole family. Headlight failure is very, very common, especially in New England roads where you go over bumps. And I don't know if you've ever looked at a light bulb real close, but if you take a light bulb out of a socket and shake it, there's two metal, let me get out of here for a second. Okay, there's like two prongs on a light bulb, and then there's a real thin filament, okay, that goes from one metal rod to another metal rod. So when you go over a bump, it shakes the metal rods and that filament breaks. Now you've got a bulb that's out. So that's why driving in the winter, you're going to lose your headlights, lose the bulb more than during summer months when the roads are in better condition. So when it talks about using emergency flashes, turn signals, dimmer switch means on your high beam. Okay, that means going high beam. You're just trying to get enough light to get you off the side of the road. Okay, that's what you're trying to do. And it's a good idea to keep an extra pair of headlights or bulbs in your car, because that way you'll be able to, go right to the trunk and put them right in. And you should be able to change the bulb. It's not that difficult. Stuck gas pedal doesn't happen that often. Usually it's because the mat has worked its way up near the pedal. It's jammed itself. So the important thing here, and I'm going to go back to me, is that if I'm driving right now and if my gas pedal is stuck, I don't want to bend down. Never bend down to grab the mat to pull on it. Just take your foot and drag the mat and see if that helps. Shift to neutral, because sometimes it could be linkage in the engine. So no matter what you do with the mat, it's still racing. The car is moving faster than you want it to do. Remember, when you don't want the car to go any faster, just put it to neutral. You could floor it with the gas pedal, and the car's not going to move any faster. Pull to the side of the road. See if there's anything that you can do inside the vehicle, but it's probably going to be mechanical. Let me show you the gas pedal video.
Although it is a rare occurrence, your Toyota may experience a sticky accelerator pedal. You should pay attention to the operation of your accelerator pedal. If the accelerator is harder to depress than normal or slower to return, it may be a precursor to a stuck pedal. These vehicles should be parked and a dealer immediately notified. Okay, what should you do if your accelerator pedal sticks? Although it is a rare occurrence, we thought you should know what steps you should take in the unlikely event that it did occur. If your pedal sticks and won't return to its original position when you take your foot off of it, step on the brake with both feet using firm and steady pressure. Don't pump the brake pedal as it will deplete the effectiveness of the brakes. Then simply shift into neutral, that's N for neutral. And firmly apply the brakes to make a controlled stop on the side of the road. If your Toyota's transmission has a notched shift gate and you're driving in sport mode, step on the brake with both feet using firm and steady pressure. Simply nudge the shifter to the right into drive, D. Then forward into neutral, N. And firmly apply the brakes to make a controlled stop on the side of the road in a safe area and shut off the engine. Drivers who cannot put the vehicle into neutral should turn the engine off. This will not cause a loss of steering or braking control, but the power assist to these systems will be lost. If the vehicle has an engine start-stop button, firmly push the button down for at least 3 seconds to turn off the engine. Do not tap the start-stop button. If the vehicle has a conventional key ignition, turn the key to the accessory position, or ACC, to turn off the engine. But do not remove the key from the ignition, as this will lock the steering wheel. If you experience any issue...
So there's a good example of what to do if your gas pedal sticks. Power steering failure, same thing as we talked about before. Try to keep the car in your lane, centered, or in the case they may say steer straight, but stay in your lane. Try to restart the vehicle. Sometimes it's a computer glitch, but the steering will be very difficult. Okay, you no longer will have power steering. So even though it says power steering failure, it means it's not working for a smooth steer, but you still should be able to steer with a little bit more pressure and a little bit more effort. The hood flies up, reduce your speed, look between the dash and the hood. If you can't see well enough, put your head out the window to guide you. This happened, I think, in a foreign country, but he had his dash cam on. This is what it looks like when your hood flies up. So you can see it's pretty violent. It's usually caused by someone that doesn't, when they have lift the hood, maybe to put oil in the car, and they bring the hood down, they don't push down enough to engage the safety mechanism. There's a safety mechanism that on every vehicle that will prevent the hood from flying all the way up like that. It will only go up about an inch, and then you've got to release that safety measure. But apparently he never got to that point where the safety measure was clicked. But you could see it's violent. It's pretty bad. Stopping on railroad tracks, we've talked about that. Windshield wiper failure. We're talking about the motor of the wiper. We're not talking about blades. Now, blades can get a little bit loose or worn, so make sure those are replaced. But we're talking about the mechanism that's not making the wipers go left, right, back and forth, back and forth. So make sure that you check your fuse box. Maybe it's a problem with the fuses, or maybe you're just going to need a new wiper motor. And whether you know that or not, your wiper does have a motor. It has a mechanism down at the base that allows pressure to move it left and right on a regular basis. Disabled vehicle, you do need to know this for the final. Pull well off the road for a distance of 200 feet. You never want to put yourself in a situation where you get hit again. So right around a corner, right over a hill, you want to be seen for that 200 feet. So even if it means pushing the car a little bit to give a little bit of extra distance before you stop and work on your vehicle, do so. But don't just do it around a corner or on top of a hill, because it will be detrimental to you. It could lead to another crash. Emergency flashes should be put on. That's indicating you need someone to help you with what's happening. Raise the hood, tie a white cloth, red in the winter. That you need to know that for the final. That's a universal symbol a cloth on a vehicle that you have no power. Because think about it. Emergency lights needs a battery. Headlights need a battery. So when you have no battery power, how are you going to tell people that your car is on the side of the road and needs help? So white is symbolic of I need help. Now, white blends in with the color snow, so people would drive by you not seeing it. So red has to be used in the wintertime. Stay with the vehicle until help arrives. Use flares reflector 200 feet behind in front of the vehicle. We'll talk more about staying with the vehicle tomorrow. I don't want to get into it too much tonight. Jump starting a vehicle. Let's take a look at how to jump start a car. Okay, what I want you to write down in your notes right now. Red is positive, black is negative. Your battery has two terminals, a positive post and a negative post. The easiest way to remember it is red to positive, so positive to positive, negative to negative. And you need jumper cables in order to jump a car. Success. So that actually did happen. My truck did not have any power at all. So I did have to actually jump start it. That was really a dead battery. So my son helped me with the filming of that, with the camera and the drone, and we kind of threw that together back really just before the coronavirus hit and we had to go online. So I figured I'd just kind of throw together a quick video of what to do. So hopefully you remember what I told you prior to the video. Red is positive. So going positive to positive, negative to negative, or negative to the frame, as you saw in the video on the bad battery. Let the car run for about 10 minutes to really get some juice into the bad battery, and then just disconnect in the same order that you put them on. But just make sure you don't hit the metal, the positive and negative together when you've got them connected to the good battery, because it will spark. It could give you a little bit of a jolt, because it's pretty strong. So it is kind of dangerous, but everybody should be able to jumpstart a car. So it's not that complicated. Vehicle on fire. Why would a vehicle catch fire? It's usually because it's been hit in a crash. Sometimes electrical systems will start to wear out. And when you've got two pieces of metal that have a current, they arc and create a spark. And before you know it, you've got a fire. But the thing to remember is to pull off the road. Please do not pull into a gas station. Okay, your car is going to get lit up like a campfire. Don't pull it to a gas station. Turn the car off, get everybody out, run away from the vehicle, because if it does ignite, it is going to be quite an explosion. This is why a tire or why a gas fire you got to watch out for.
Hello, this is Todd Tracy from the Tracy Law Firm in Dallas, Texas, with another Todd Talks. Today I want to talk with you about the concept that vehicles should never catch on fire following an accident. So why does a vehicle catch on fire following an accident? Well, first of all, if the fuel tank is breached because of a rock, because the drive shaft explodes, because the drive shaft actually moves over and contacts the fuel tank, that can cause a hole in the tank, which can cause a fire. The second type of accident that we see when a fire occurs is when a fuel line actually moves over because the engine has shifted over. There's usually 6 to 8 inches of extra fuel line space. However, if you get involved in a frontal offset impact, or what's commonly known as an oblique impact, the engine can shift over 12 inches, and if the fuel lines separate, that can cause a fire. Lastly, we see a lot of impacts where the impact is on the outside of the frame rails, where the batteries are located. And as the impact occurs, the battery actually gets contacted. The acid in the battery literally catches on fire and catches the entire engine compartment on fire. If your client has suffered burn injuries or they've suffered death because they...
So you get the idea in a crash. You want to get out of the vehicle. Parts have been moving. Things have been severed. Gas fires are always dangerous. So whether you see a flame, if you smell smoke, get away from the vehicle. Get out as quickly as you can. You're not going to be able to take everything out of your car, because once it catches, it goes. That is the last bullet. That is it for driving emergencies. Okay, let's talk a little bit about tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about driving in hazardous conditions. So I'd like you to read chapter 13 in responsible driving. And remember, do your assessments. Some of you are still not doing your homework. You have to do your homework to pass the class. It's just not taking the test. Okay, you've got to do your homework. Read section 10 in the state manual. And this will probably take us all the way through tomorrow's class. We may have a little bit to do on Monday, in Monday's class. But next week, we're going to focus on alcohol, drugs, insurance, and road rage or highway driving. And then we've got our last week where we finish up with distracted driving, sharing the road with motorcycles, large trucks, review. And then we have our final. So we are pushing forward. After the midterm, it does move. It goes right along very, very quickly. So I appreciate those that have stayed on. I see only 15 eyeballs are still on the PowerPoint here. So I'm going to sign off for tonight. So hopefully you took good notes. You'll probably have about 6 questions on the final on tonight's, 5 or 6 questions. Okay, so it's important that you took good notes. And if you did your reading and responsible driving, that helps too, because it's almost the same type of thing. So have a good evening. We'll see you again tomorrow at 8 o'clock. We'll talk about driving in winter weather. And it should be a warm one tomorrow. I heard it's supposed to be warmer than today. So, good job on the midterm. Thanks for tuning in tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow.